definition of happiness.
Let me play through what you're like. Your thinking might have gone like, hey, these people have told me that Allah, right? Allah is God has a plan for me, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen anything to make me think that. But boy, the stuff they're saying, it sounds pretty good. That sounds like some stuff I want to believe.
Yes.
I think I'm going to believe the stuff they said.
It sounded good. It sounded good, but
interject. I need to go as well, so I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, thank you, Anti-Sleeper. I loved talking with you as well. Yes, to the giggler, it sounded good. A lot of the arguments sounded good, but fundamentally they were very flawed. For example, one of the arguments atheists made a lot was like every Muslim is born to a Muslim family. Every religious person is born to a religious family, and that was very compelling argument for me. When I superficially looked into it, this was a very compelling argument. But then you think of an argument: what if an atheist is born to an atheist? So it just falls apart.
Hang on, slow down. I don't think every Muslim was born to a Muslim family. I think they're recruiting people.
Yes,
I think that's the thing, and recruiting might be a.
But Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris uses this a lot, right?
Hang on. I don't think for 1 second Islam is growing only by making more children. I think they're convincing people of the stuff they believe. Yeah, for sure. I'm okay with that.
And Islamic's response, if we could please, we want to establish to you the real difference between, because we are not a lifetime believer. We are not. We were incredibly spiritual for about half of our life. We went to all sorts of different courses. We became a spiritual leader. We became an ordained minister. We presided over numerous ceremonies. And during
speaking for himself, I had none of those experiences because all idiots hate each other. But yeah, go ahead.
So during that time, we were a very powerful believer. But at one point, we came to the realization that belief is the conviction. You believe something because you're convinced about it. And over the course of learning more and more and more about religion, we found it less and less convincing as time goes by. So we don't personally think that there's anything promising about being an atheist. It's just that we don't believe anything that any religious text that we have seen says, most commonly because we have seen in repeatable reality that many of the things that are said in many of these books, regardless of religion, are not true, or at least not convincing.
Philosophy, just so we don't overwhelm it. Could you and I sort of compare and contrast our route to becoming atheists and listen in to see how that happened for each person? Like, how did you get to your place of non-belief?
Okay, so
very
really
good.
Trying to condense it. We were raised traditional European pagan. And then from there, we expanded out into like hyper-generic New Age pantheism. So, the belief that all religions are trying to go for the same thing and that all gods are, valid and stuff like that. And because we were so excited about believing in that, we were very spiritual, very religious in a sense. And because we were so excited about that, it inspired us to learn more and more and more about every religion we could get our hands on.
If I could short circuit you, you grew up all in on the theist boat.
All in, 120,000%. Yes.
And then TLDR, how did you get to where you are now?
We read enough books. We read enough religious books.
No.
Found out that what we thought.
That's a lie.
About. Oh my God!
Well,
so we.
If he tells you what he thinks, something's a liar. That's just mean.
Well, and we weren't even done telling. So, long story short, we ended to be a better minister. We ended up reading so many different books that we found out that the idea that we had that all religions were trying to go for the same thing was very much not true. That most religions are highly specialized toward the culture and region that they're built in, so eventually led us to believe. To not believe.
I think I think majority of the.
Let me
okay.
hang on 1 second. you're gonna talk next. Just really quick. You were a believer because it's what you were, and I'm putting air quotes around this. Indoctrinated, like it was a family thing, like you were taught.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
you were a
100%.
non-believer because you looked at it, right?
Yeah,
On your own. Okay. So,
we're raised a very devout believer.
I'd love to hear your route to Islam. How did you get there?
To Islam? No, obviously I was born a Muslim, right? Yes. I can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yeah. How did you get to your belief in Islam?
Obviously, I was born a Muslim. I was born a Muslim. However,
Hang on. Let's pause 1 second. I don't think that's obvious, and I don't think this other guy thinks it's obvious.
Yes.
Religion is a very flexible thing, at least in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yes, it's not obvious. Okay, but most of the people, indeed, I mean, their religion is from their parents. Let's be honest. Most of the people are like that.
Why do you think that's the case?
Because
do you think it's a good idea for most people to accept the religion of their parents? Like
No.
My parents were Jews. Should I go?
And by the way, Islam is against that as well. Islam is against that as well. Quran speaks numerous times that don't support you, don't just follow your forefathers blindly, right? So you multiple verses about this, right? So we don't believe in just accepting the religion of your parents.
I'm gonna do my best to be quiet, and I want to hear why you became a Muslim.
Yes, I would give the argument that I am a Muslim not because my parents are Muslims. I would say that Islam has the best definition of happiness. Islam has the best ideology, right? Islam has everything to Islam has everything to offer. The thing that atheists lack is these kind of things like objective morality, and how do they defend the concept of infinite regress, right?
Sorry.
This problem of infinite regress. Why is there something rather than nothing? Muhammad Hijab, these kind of Muslims have, Sabur Ahmed, their discussions with atheists, they have always asked this question, and atheists always come up short on these questions. But Muslims defend this argument brilliantly, and even better than Christians, because Christians are left in that paradox of Trinity, that unsolvable paradox of Trinity, which even confuses you even more. So Islam has the best definition of that. There is one eternal entity, one necessary existence that caused this existence into being, which solves the problem of the absurdity of infinite regress, right? So Islamic monotheism.
So it sounds like by best you mean we're trying.
We're
trying to solve one question of definition.
Yes, Islam.
By best, do you mean simplest? Question mark.
By
it has the best definition of happiness.
Yes, by best I mean.
You sound like a person who used to be a believer who's now an atheist, and you're being called out by a person who has never been a believer. Like, let's hear what the guy has to offer. It's making sense so far.
Yes,
we aren't making sense from it, which is why we're asking when you say Islam.
I had a couple notes as we call them out, but I wanted to be polite.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
I was just suggesting that the problem
Okay,
of
go ahead. Sorry.
the problem of the infinite regress, atheists are stuck with that problem. I mean, they haven't solved it. Let's be honest. They say that the universe can be eternal, but there's massive problems because universe exhibits the thing of increasing and decreasing, right? The things of differentiation. So the universe is finite. We can see the universe, right? Infinity we cannot see. So the problem of infinite regress, Islam tackles very nicely, and atheists cannot tackle that. The second, the definition of happiness, the morality. Atheists are left with finite definition of happiness, right?
Before you attack on happiness morality, let me quickly cut you off if I may. When you look at the world and you say, how could this be here? The lack of a deity provides no good answer. But when you throw Quran into it, you're like, oh, obviously this makes sense to me. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think the question of God can be justified, or the existence of God can be justified without the Quran as well. I believe that the existence of God can be justified based upon logic. However, the characteristics of God, you need a revelation for that, right? How to establish a relationship with God? Is the God personal, like a theist, or is he not personal, like a deist, right?
Let's pause this because you when we asked you what you believe, you were talking about how the universe got here.
Yes.
But is it that the Quran explains how we got here, which is satisfying, or the Quran has an explanation, which is satisfying because we want an explanation?
Okay, Muslims believe.
Or do you see a distinction between physicists? You know.
Muslims
We'll
believe.
add a next option because we've been noticing this is an option for you to select. We're not like coming at you with this or anything here.
No.
And this is from our perspective. What it
is. Bully, a big jerk.
No. It's you people are very friendly. You people are very friendly.
Oh, it's not to be a bully. We're asking fucking serious questions. Stop fucking with us. So, and this is from our perspective. Are you saying that you chose Islam because atheism doesn't make sense to you?
Yes.
Like, big question mark there. Okay. That's what we wanted to know. You chose Islam because atheism doesn't make sense to you.
Also, no, two arguments. Two arguments. No. Two arguments. Because atheism doesn't make sense on this question of why is there something, which is a fundamental question, and the definition of happiness is not better than Islamic definition of happiness.
What is the Islamic definition? You haven't stated that yet.
Eternal happiness in paradise. Match this. If an atheist can match this, I'll accept atheism right now. It doesn't.
Can you prove that happiness exists?
If you believe that God is real, which we did, which
I feel like I'm behind the conversation. What was that question? Like, you believe in what?
if you believe that God is real, which we can ascertain through logic and the revelation, right?
I thought it was you believe that God's real is happiness.
The
Islam's definition
of happiness
is better than the atheist's definition.
Yes. And by the way, I haven't seen this discussion ever on YouTube, so we are probably the first to discuss this openly.
Islam's definition of happiness, as I understand it, and keep in mind, I'm not a Muslim, is if I do all the stuff this thing told me to do, and if this thing is real,
you do your best.
Paradise. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yes, if you do your best, you will get eternal happiness in paradise. Atheists do not have an eternal happiness.
So you chose Islam because its definition of happiness is better, and you don't understand.
When I was 22 years old, this was a major contention for me, right? What better alternative is there to the definition of happiness, right? What will keep me happier, right? And atheism cannot match Islam. I'm not saying this is the only argument. I'm saying this is a strong argument as well, with the argument of why is there something rather than nothing, also tackled brilliantly by Islamic philosophy, right?
I think that you asked the right question. I think you came to the wrong answer, but obviously we disagree on that. The right answer. But yeah, the fact that you asked the right question.
I'm open to better answers.
We think it's far more important than being open to better answers is to not be closed to somebody else's side. You've continually said numerous times throughout this back and forth that atheists don't have this, atheists don't have that, atheists do not have a better definition of happiness, but you have not been very generous on your definitions through Islam, and it doesn't feel like you actually know much about atheism, considering that you so regularly refer to us as a monolith. So we're kind of confused about this, Huh?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So we're kind of confused about this.
By the way,
We
Islamic response, I love the filter from Jason.
By the way, I have sent friend friend
very
request.
enjoyable. Very enjoyable. So our real question here, we suppose, is how do no? Give us a second. So we're trying to parse the words
Think
together. We're not very good
it
wording
through.
in general,
Think it through. Think it through.
So
Yay!
I think you were trying to suggest that how
well, we're not suggesting anything. We're actually trying to voice a question here, but the words are failing us right now, which is a completely
no, I think
human problem. Of course.
yes, it happens. It happens. I think you were trying to suggest how will you describe Islam as a better ideology than atheism, but I think
The wind's catching me.
No, definitely not what we were going at. No, definitely not what not even on the train. How can you justify your definition of as real? Like just because you think that not believing has a different definition of happiness than Islam, by what metric do you determine the truth of these claims? Like why do you believe that Islam is actually going to give you eternal happiness?
yes, the answer to this is again, Muslims believe that the route towards truth is number one logic, also known as reason, and number two is revelation. So that's where the aqal and naqal argument of the famous Muslim arguments, the reason and revelation, these are the two routes towards knowledge. So if you can ascertain with logic that God exists, so how is that God? Okay, how is that God like? Should we establish a relationship with him? A revelation does make sense somewhere, right? How to establish a relationship with that?
That doesn't answer our question. We're not asking how to establish your relationship with God. How can you, Islamic response, personally, you were the one who made the claim that Islam has a much better definition than atheism. You were the one that made the claim that Islamic happiness is, infinite and eternal and all that. So our question, since you made the claim, is our desire here would be to get from you how you came to that conclusion in a separate, repeatable instance. Do you believe that because the Church of Islam, do you believe that because the Quran says so, or did you actually go through some empirical testing that can be repeated and shown to us, for example, on a video, like on the YouTube, that proves that if you're a good boy, after you die, you will have infinite and eternal happiness? Do you have like a study or like a test or experiment or paperwork that or are you just taking your culture at their word?
No.
And believing?
Let me explain. Your question is, why do you believe that heaven, the paradise, the eternal happiness is true? Why do you believe that specific thing, right? So the answer to that,
specifically, we're asking what evidence, what physical proof do you have to show us, a completely separate person who does not believe and is very much like coming out here and being like, okay, bro, we're going to take you at your word here. You say that Islam's definition of happiness is much better than any other definition, including our own. You describe that definition as being, unending happiness in paradise. Can you prove to us,
yes,
with some physical, tangible evidence that will become a thing, or are you getting that from Islam? No,
I can only prove that through logic and with logic, because empirical evidence, there is the route towards truth is not just empirical, right? You believe that logic is also a genuine route towards truth.
We did change around our definition for you for your personal benefit. We said physical evidence that you can show us on a video or something like that on YouTube.
Physical.
You show us physical evidence. If we're a good little Muslim boy, we will have eternal happiness?
No.
Or is that something
No.
that you've just believed
Directly,
because
no.
you're Muslim?
I
Okay. So in
I believe that because
response-
I believe that because logically speaking, if with logic we have ascertained that God exists, and with logic that eternal creator possessing eternal creator possessing eternal knowledge, it is logical to believe in his testimony, right? If somebody possesses eternal knowledge, if somebody possesses eternal knowledge,
Which
it,
one?
it is logically a good choice to accept what he says, right? So that's the logic behind this.
So
When God says that,
no, but you're not answering the question. You're not answering the question. Did God physically? We're asking you for physical evidence of this promise. You cannot give it, so we do not believe in it. If you can't show it, we don't believe in it.
okay, is physical is
More importantly, the stipulations that you're making represent false dichotomies.
No.
Your God is not potential God to be the creator, and a God creating the universe or a God not creating the universe are not necessarily the only two options. If you want to extend your imagination as far as possible, it is entirely possible that before our universe came to be, two not quite almighty God creatures were fighting each other, killed each other, creating the Big Bang, thus making our universe and having an atheistic universe, but still having a creator. So the problem here is that you haven't shown any tangible evidence of any of your claims, but you've made plenty of them. So we're asking, do you believe these claims because of tangible evidence? And you have said no. So therefore, you believe these claims due to some Muslim ideology that has been fed to you.
due to logic
And that's fine.
and logic
Huh?
and logic.
What you have not yet, you've claimed that you've made this statement from logic, but you have not presented any of your logic. And logically, if you were to, you could put it on a YouTube and show us the experiment just like we've asked. But you've already stated that you will not or cannot do that, so there is no logic in this. Logically, if you can't show us something physical, then we have no reason to believe you, because outstanding claims can be discarded without outstanding evidence.
Okay, logically speaking.
That's logic.
Okay, I've listened to all of what you have said. Logically speaking, the existence of the universe, best argument is God, or necessary existence, or eternal existence, whatever you want to call it. God is the eternal existence according to Muslims. So logically,
Why is that the best explanation?
because
What is that?
because otherwise there will be the problem of infinite regress, which atheists have.
Defined in
Infinite regress means
you haven't.
infinite
We don't.
infinite regress means if if I suggest
So what's infinite regress?
if I
Please
suggest
define that.
if I suggest that the person who created you or procreated you, the infinite regress would suggest who procreated that person, and if it keeps going, if it
What is infinite regress?
infinite re-
What care what it suggests? What is it? You haven't defined it yet.
infinite
We don't know what infinite regress is.
infinite
Please tell us.
infinite regress means if there was not a first primary cause, there wouldn't have been any existence. Okay, the prime mover.
We're going to now look at that.
The prime mover argument that Aristotle famously gave, the prime mover, which is the same. For example, if you need to press a button, let's just give you an example. If you need to press a button, but you have to take permission from me, and I have to take permission from somebody else, if it keeps going, will you ever press the button? The answer is no. That's what infinite regress is. If this causality keeps on going, would universe exist? The answer is no, but it does exist. It means that there was a first prime mover, there was a first cause, there was a first eternal cause, and that's the best logical argument that theists give in favor of God, right?
Got it.
Infinite regress example.
On that note, I'm gonna bail out, guys. It's been a pleasure meeting both of you.
By the way, I have sent you friend request and both of you friend request as
I
well,
saw that.
right?
I accept it.
Okay.